We're going to give it just another minute, just a reminder that we are recording tonight's session. So anything that you see or hear tonight, we will have accessible, but also you will get links to all of the resources that are being shared tonight. Okay. So I'm gonna get going. First of all, welcome and thank you for participating. Number one, I hope you're all healthy and well. Everybody give me a thumbs up. You're all muted temporarily, but you will not be for long. Everyone's doing well. Good. We miss you guys. We miss your kids. It's hard to do this remotely, but thanks for showing up and for your support and for your patience and for your willingness to keep learning with us. We're always doing that. And these are certainly pretty unusual times. And we are grateful that you are spending 45 minutes with us this evening. So currently you are all muted to manage the number of people. We will unmute you during the question and answer session. Just there's probably a lot of background noise in everybody's home. So, but please feel free to say hello and on the chat line on the side there and introduce yourself. And if you have any questions while we're chatting tonight, you can put them in the chat stream over here and we will be monitoring them. Okay. Tonight we are going to do a little bit of a broad overview of a few different topics. The intention is really not to give an in-depth amount of information, but really more to give you some ideas about how you might manage engaging your child at home, and also some of the issues that may be coming up for your child as they're trying to learn remotely. Because we all know that remote learning wasn't really intended for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, and that it's a challenge. And sometimes I'm hearing from parents that you guys can send us all the best activities in the world, but my kid just is not interested. And we also are very, very sensitive to managing the amount of screen time our young learners have. And we want to make sure that that we're giving you different kinds of activities that can engage them in your homes that are not all computer based. Okay. So tonight's format is that you will hear from 5 different people. You'll hear from Jessica Trumbull, who is our lower elementary learning specialist. She's waving to you. Jessica's going to talk a little bit about how to set up your home environment and kind of put some structure in place for your young learners. Meg Nappick, who is our math specialist, she's waving now too, will be talking a little bit about some authentic math and literacy activities that you can engage your children in at home. And Mr. Pacheco's over there. He's our school counselor, and he's going to be talking about some of the social emotional challenges that young children are facing in this unusual time. We know that kids do really well with structure and routine. We know that they're missing their friends and their teachers. We're hearing that from you very regularly. So Scott has some great ideas for you around that. Then Tennille Sanders is going to talk a little bit about, Tennille's our PYP coordinator. She's going to talk to you a little bit about what unit of inquiry your children are about to head into, and give you some ideas about how to engage them in conversations and activities around those units. And then Peg Kiner, last but not least, who's been saving everybody and our tech support for the whole world right now, is going to share some activities that we have collected, and we will give you a link to the website where you can access not only the activities, but the slides from this evening's presentation. And then we'll open this up for question and answer and give you guys some time to ask questions. When you ask questions, we just ask that you identify the person that you're asking the question to, if it is a specific person, okay? So I think without further ado, we will begin with Ms. Trumbull.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Right before we start, I think it would be easiest for parents if you switch your Zoom to the speaker view versus gallery view. If you're on gallery view, you'll see that there are 2 pages of people called in. And if you switch to speaker view, which is on the top right, you'll be able to view just the person on the panel who's speaking. So that might make it a little easier than having to page through a bunch of people. So like Cindy said, my name is Jessica Trumbull. I'm the learning specialist, and I work with students in preschool through grade 2. We really appreciate all the parents that made time to come tonight. I know you've had a full day of working and teaching, so we appreciate that you're here. Also, thank you so much for the feedback that you guys are giving on the weekly surveys. It really helps us inform our instruction and format for the next week, so it's very, very helpful. When we were preparing to give this session to parents tonight, I think the biggest thing I've been thinking about is that this is a very unique time to be an educator, let alone to be a parent during this. So we really value that you've been giving us feedback and staying in contact with your child's teachers. I think we're all figuring this out together. So we really appreciate the partnership with our parents. So having said that, I think all of us here tonight, we're here to offer suggestions, but I would encourage parents to keep in mind that this is not a one size fits all. So some things that we suggest may feel very great for your family, and some things you might never want to use, and that's totally fine. You are obviously the expert on your child. So like I said, we're here to offer suggestions, but don't feel pressured to try everything we say. So like Cindy said, I'm going to give you some suggestions on your home environment. So when thinking about structure, I encourage families to think about what structure is going to make your family most successful. So some families benefit from an hourly schedule where everything is mapped out. Some families need something with much more flexibility. You know, the internet is our friend and our enemy, but in this sense, I think, you know, if you Google, you know, like schedule for homeschooling or schedule for preschoolers, you'll find tons of templates. My suggestion is to find something for your family that addresses academic time and functional skills time, right? Because yes, they're students, but they're also human. So we want to find time in their day for playing together, for helping an adult with cooking, for cleaning up their toys. So kind of thinking of this as their whole day, not just academics. Another thing for their environment is identifying a workspace. So when it is time to do their schoolwork, a lot of families have reported that it's really helpful for kids to have a specific place to do their work. So in the classroom, kids are pretty used to having, you know, when I'm in this center, this is the activity I'm doing. When I'm in this center, this is the activity I'm doing. So they're kind of already primed for that type of setup at home. Visual timers are a great tool for kids this age. So again, if you want to check out on Amazon, you can type in visual timers for kids. There's also tons of free apps, so you can just download it on your phone, because kids this age don't have a sense of time. So if you're saying to your kid, you know, we can come play blocks after I send these 4 emails, that means something for us as adults, but for kids, they're really going to struggle with that concept of time. I think my biggest recommendation to parents is that at GEMS, such a heavy piece of our curriculum in this age is play. So yes, we're focusing on academics and early literacy and early math skills, but we believe that children learn the best through play. So we really want to encourage you to follow your child's lead. So if they are not interested in what is on Seesaw that day, that is okay. They're going to be fine. So I think, you know, if they're more interested that day in building with blocks, there's so many different math activities you can incorporate with blocks, even if it's not what Seesaw had on the agenda for the day. I think, you know, we're all going through this together. So I think as I've been talking to parents over the past few days, we've been talking a lot about quality versus quantity. So if there are, you know, 5 Seesaw activities posted for the day, it might make more sense for your family to pick 2 and do them really well versus trying to attack all 5. So and again, I think that's for your sanity, for your child's enjoyment. We're all about prioritizing things now. The last thing I would say is I just am communicating to as many parents as I can that we are in this together. You know, I know that's like the slogan of Chicago right now. But this is such a unique situation. And I think the more we can partner with you, the better things will be for your child. So, you know, everyone on this panel tonight, we're going to have our contact info on a slide at the end. So please feel free to reach out with us. We're going to throw a lot of information at you tonight, but this is an ongoing conversation. So definitely feel free to reach out to any of our teams, and we're going to make this happen. It's going to get better every week. I promise. So I will turn it over to Meg Napick. She's our math specialist.
I echo Jessica and Cindy. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm Meg Nappick, and I am the math specialist and coordinator for the lower school at GEMS. And I am in a bit of a similar boat to all of you parents. I have a toddler at home. She'll be turning 3 in a month, and then she will be starting at GEMS in the fall. So I understand how it is to have a young child at home and be trying to juggle being a parent as well as oftentimes trying to juggle work as well. So I am going to give you some ideas for how you can incorporate literacy and math into play-based activities with some items that you probably already have around your home. As Jessica said, take the lead from your child. If your child is not interested in something, you don't need to push it. The child's going to be much more engaged in any type of play-based learning if it is something that he or she is very interested in. So I'm going to share my screen. These slides will all be posted. I'm going to give you some ideas, and there will be many more as well in the activity bank that is shared with you on the website at the end of the presentation. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen. So first and foremost, if you have some of these things at your home, you are in great shape already. Any type of block play, puzzles, containers of different sizes, a variety of toys or items in which any type of sorting, ordering, comparing can happen. Those are all already perfect examples of when your children are engaging in mathematical thinking and problem solving at home. So anytime your child wants to do puzzles or play with blocks, that's a yes. Literacy related activities are anything with books, paper, crayons, pencils, even things like Play-Doh that they're using to manipulate, to create. That is perfect for literacy as well. So I'm going to give you some ideas for extending some of these play items and making them that much more focused on math and literacy. So the first one, block play, you can extend to make even more math focused by having your child sort block towers based on number. We have actual number cards at our home, but you can just write numbers on Post-it notes, and they build their different structures, and your child can sort them. We always call them like number towns. So she sorts them into number towns based on the number of blocks used to make the structure. Now my daughter is younger than your children, so you see here very basic things. We have big blocks, we have very small numbers, but this can be differentiated. So you can use larger numbers to provide the opportunity to build with more blocks. You can specifically do things like multiples of 5 if your child is practicing skip counting by 5s, and then that will also help them learn to start counting in groups of 5, which is a more organized way for counting. Ideally, we want to have opportunities for our children to play independently. So an activity like this could buy you, 15 plus minutes of time to do some emails or unload the dishwasher. But if you are able to be with your child for an activity like this, asking them questions about how do you know there are this many blocks? Do all of the buildings for 5 blocks look exactly the same? Why don't you think they all look the same? Can you find another way to build with exactly X number of blocks? If you can ask them questions about what they've done to engage them in conversation, that's great for practicing their language skills as well and helping them start to process that mathematical thinking verbally. Another way to extend block play so that it's that much more math related is to have some type of item that you're picturing or kind of placing as the center item, and have your child build structures that are taller and shorter than that object. So that begins to get into measurement. Now we're not using rulers and formal measurement tools by any means, but we are using the measurement terms, the comparison terms of taller and shorter. Again, you can get into more depth by making multiple taller structures, multiple shorter structures, comparing them from there. And another one that I saw, Kent Haynes has a website called Games for Young Minds. It's on the list of parent resources that we've sent out on a website already, but fabulous if you have not yet checked him out. Blindfolded Lego building promotes even more spatial reasoning. And spatial reasoning is one of the greatest indicators for long-term success in mathematics because it develops such strong critical thinking skills. Anytime you're unloading the dishwasher is a great opportunity for your child because they can match the lid with the container. And then a further extension, find something that will fit inside each container. There's also fine motor skill practice if they're screwing a lid onto something, which is another added benefit as well. When they're doing this, they're beginning to understand things like volume and capacity, particularly when they're finding items that will and will not fit into certain size containers. Puzzles are amazing anytime. Something that we do from time to time is we dump a bunch of puzzle pieces together, which requires my daughter to first sort the puzzles. Sorting, looking for similarities is a very important mathematical skill to develop, relational thinking, and then completing the puzzles. Now, I will say, do this with puzzles that they can already do independently because you don't want to have to be helping them figure out the sorting. You want them to be able to do the sorting on their own first. If you also want to integrate some fine motor skills, you can put the puzzle pieces in something like a sensory bin if you have that at home. If you don't, that's okay. This is not the best time to introduce something totally new, but they can use tongs to pick puzzle pieces out of a sensory bin, or they can, if you have like any spare packing paper, butcher paper, something like that at home, wrapping puzzle pieces makes them very appealing, but also gives them the opportunity for that fine motor practice before doing the puzzles. Shape labeling, if you can draw shapes on Post-it notes, they can then pop those around the house on different objects with the corresponding shapes. And then to give you some letter or literacy activity ideas, I'm sure many of you have Play-Doh at home, forming letters out of the Play-Doh and then an item that starts with the same letter. So this is a C is for cookie, but this can be extended with things like sight words as well. Cheerio names is a happy favorite in our house. Write the name on a piece of paper. This can also be done with sight words, and then use Cheerios or dot stickers if you have those Avery dot stickers at home, or dry beans, really any small object to cover up the letters. This is something that keeps my daughter quite occupied. And then of course she looks forward to eating the Cheerios at the end when she's all done. Anytime where they can be the author and illustrator of their own story is wonderful. The writing and the illustrating will look very different for children at different ages. But if you have a few papers that you can staple together into a book, that makes them feel that much more official and important. And after they're done, please have them read their story to you. They can write the room, so paper, writing utensil, walk around the house, write down any words that they see around them. This is something my daughter cannot do at this point, but would be great for kids who are learning to write words and beginning to read sight words. And then any type of play school, play store is a perfect opportunity to integrate math and literacy at the same time. So like I said, there are many other options that'll be shared with you in the activity bank at the end. But for the sake of time, I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Pacheca so he can talk about addressing your child and their social emotional needs right now.
There you go. Hi, everyone. So I see a lot of our parents here, and I see a lot of parents of kids I've gotten a chance to talk to, and some I have not. So I'm going to let you know, because I see Rob there, Charlie and Amelie's dad. This is more aimed at, like Ms. Napick said, fostering some independence with our kid. So it's kind of aimed at some of our younger learners, my portion of it. I would like to say that if, a lot of your for some of our older learners in the lower school, if there's anything that I can do as far as teaching coping skills, having one-on-one Zoom sessions for kids a little through third, fourth, and fifth up, then I'm more than willing to do that. You can reach me directly to that. So my kind of part of this is I am going to kind of share a couple examples of tools that I use with kids in our school. So they should be familiar with them, a lot of them, or I've sent home with a lot of kids that kind of help kids independently manage some of their routine, as well as their frustrations. We've heard a lot of kind of, like Ms. Wriggling said, some pushback from some of our younger learners when it comes to the online learning, and that's understandable. Kids are more at that age. I work a little bit better when it's in person, as I think most of our kids do. So this is some stuff that when it gets difficult, I'm going to share my screen and show you some tools that I'm going to use, and obviously they're all available too. Ms. Kiner will show you where to get them. And also I want to say that I'm sharing them in a Word document so they can be tweaked to your kid's kind of preference or your kid's routine too. First of all, before I even send any of those tools out, I want to talk about kind of like the power of choice and the importance of using that when we're talking about frustrated kids. You know, in the kids' world, a lot of kids don't get a lot of choice, and I think right now they feel like they're getting even less choice. So I want to talk about how I've talked to a lot of kids, de-escalated a lot of kids by just using simple choices. First thing I want to say is when a kid is super frustrated and tantruming, less is more. I feel like kids, when they're escalated, are kind of overstimulated, and a lot of time, a lot of talking to them is just more noise going into them. It's more for them to process, and it actually furthers the tantrum, for lack of a better word, or just them digging in a little more. So a lot of things that I'll do with kids is if your kid is of reading age, I'll use just something I write down on a piece of paper. I'll write them a note instead of telling them what I need them to do or asking them what I want them to do. And if they don't have reading skills quite yet, I'll pre-talk with them and kind of role play out some situations about what we're going to use, and I'll use visual aids. I'm going to share some of those visual aids so that in that moment of escalation, I don't have to try to get a kid to understand something new or even hear more noise. They can kind of see something that reminds them of what we worked on and practiced before, and then they can kind of try to eventually, ideally, use this to independently manage some of those tough moments. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. And I'll talk you to some of those tools that I'm using. So hopefully everyone can see what we're doing here. Loading. Okay, so this is kind of like, I believe when it comes to like anger and frustration with young kids, it's a very physical thing. We'll see them throw themselves on the ground, wiggle around. It's a lot of energy coming to their body, a lot of extra adrenaline. So I don't really, when it comes to kids like 5 and younger, I don't know that they can like always deep breathe themselves down or think of a happy place. A lot of time they got to get energy out of them. But like I said, if your kid is one who can kind of deep breathe his way down or take a drink of water, you can kind of switch these up. So how I use these tools is I'll talk to them beforehand and show them different ways that they can get some energy out. That's a healthy way to kind of cope with some big emotion. And then I'll have them, these will be Velcroed all to a piece of like laminated paper or even taped to a piece of paper if you don't have a laminator. And then the smiley faces are kind of off to the side, and they're kind of used as check marks. Like, okay, I've tried this one, I've tried this one, I've tried this one. And ideally they'll find one that eventually works for them and they can get through a big emotion. I'll do a similar one for sadness. I think kids can kind of, when kids are down, they kind of want to be comforted. It's often why kids, when they cry, they'll run to the most comforting thing, which is usually mom or dad, if they're in the room. But I know when mom and dad are working that it's not always available to them. So this is kind of something that I'll walk them through and give them another checklist to kind of say, you know, when you're sad, here's a couple ideas of what you can try. And then I'll say, you know, if a kid's in a classroom, for example, for me, I'll say, did you try your checklist? And if they didn't, I'll ask them to independently try. And then maybe after they've tried all of those and it don't work, then maybe I'll offer my support. But the goal is to get them to try it on their own, and then if they're ever successful with it, to give them a big praise with it. With all of these things I'm going to introduce to you, I think the 2 things I want to say about them are early successes are really key for buy-in with anything. If a kid doesn't feel successful in something, a lot of times they'll give it up pretty quick and say it doesn't work. And also big praise when they do it, right? If you're able to do something like independently manage your sadness, hey, that's pretty good for a 4-year-old, 5-year-old. So I give them big praise for that, and a big reward, incentive kind of chart thing I'll use for that too. Other tools I'll use is for routine. I know a lot of parents have reached out to me talking about how they can't get their kid out of bed or get their kid to school or get their kid in the routine for school. So I role play out these things with a lot of our kids at school and send them home with it. Some of you parents, I can't see everyone here, but some of you might have seen something like this in your home, because the idea is to kind of get kids to start, you know, doing their own routine on their own, and then giving them big praise when they do it. And I'll use it as like an incentive, right? So walking out, I have visual aids there as well as words if the kids prefer either one. And then again, having them manage that check mark. And this is executive functioning skills. This is planning skills. This is organization. This is also teaching your kid a lot of skills that they'll need in a school setting, but also, giving you some free time and hopefully them some more independence. I think in a child's world, they really are happy when they're independent, when they do it on their own. A lot of kids want to do stuff on their own, even if you are the kind of parent who tries to help your kid along. A lot of time the kid will say, no, let me try it on my own. So this is kind of saying, hey, you could do it on your own. I know you could try it on your own. Let's work it together. A big piece of this is role playing it out first and walking them through it, and kind of a gradual release of responsibility. This is another one that Mr. Sella has used in his room. I know a bunch of our kids have seen a model like this. And this is kind of like a if-then, kind of if what I want is on the bottom, right? What the child is seeking. And then on the top is how they can get it in a calm way. A lot of times the kid might want something and they'll scream about it or cry about it until you eventually give in. So this is something, a visual aid that we'll use. We'll have the kid pick the picture even of him doing it. I suggest pictures of your actual child doing the activity. And then reminding them, if this is what you want, this is how you can get it. And this is a way that works out for both of us. So building some partnership with your child. And then finally, incentive charts. I have a frozen one here because that's one that's popular in our building still. Everyone wants to be Elsa. But I know some people have kind of mixed feelings about incentive charts, but I kind of feel like a lot of human behavior is, based on incentive. We go to work because we get paid, or we exercise because we get in shape. We kind of get stuff out of stuff that we do. And one thing I would say for an incentive chart is early success is obviously really important. They want to feel them successful, but it doesn't have to be a material item as a reward. It could be, if you want 5 minutes of my undivided attention when I am at work, I'll take a break if you can earn me 2 stars. Or it could be, really let the child pick it. I've found a lot of times when the parent picks the reward, it's often way more extravagant than the child would pick. Sometimes we had a parent a couple months ago that the kid was just like, I just want a high five. Okay, sure. You get a high five every 5 stars. So giving them, and also that gives them some agency into an ownership of it, right? If I've picked what I get out of it, if I've picked the incentive, my reward, I'm more likely to go get it then, because it's something that I know that I want. It's not something you're telling me that you want. So that's all of the items that I have. Like I said, these, let me stop screen share real quick. I have, these all can be edited. I can help you edit them too. If you email me and give me an idea, I can help you out with those. I'm more than willing to do anything I can for you. I know this is a difficult time. So one last thing I wanted to say, one thing that my sister has 2 toddlers at home too, that she's been using, filling time with activities has been kind of something that parents are struggling with, is scavenger hunts. We've been making all kinds of scavenger hunts, like find me a fork, find me a safety pin, find me a towel and a black sock. And her 3-year-old will go run, find them, and come back with the reward. Or if he's in the backyard, she'll say, get me a dandelion, a stick, and a blade of grass. Or, you could make them however you want. And that fill some time with some kids. I know right now that's a big struggle, is just filling the time where the kids independently functioning. So I'm more than willing to talk to any of you one-on-one about some more ideas about that kind of stuff. But that was just kind of a broad overview of some tools that I'm going to make available to you. It's great to see you all, and I am going to pass it on now.
Good evening, everyone. Like everyone else has said, we're really excited that you took the time to join us tonight. My name is Tennille Sanders. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the PYP coordinator at GEMS. I help support teachers preschool through 5th grade with their units of inquiry. So I work really closely with Meg and Peg and Cindy and Jessica and Scott to make sure that the teachers have all of the resources, well, and now parents do, have all the resources they need to really help our program flourish. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just talk a little bit about some of the current units. I know JK is getting ready to actually switch into a new unit, so kind of helping you to understand what's coming up. And then also just talk a little bit about ways that you can help make the thinking visible at home, some strategies that we use in our classrooms. Just give me 1 second. All right, hopefully everybody can see the screen. So really looking at our preschool through kindergarten units of inquiry and what can it look like at home. I'm going to share a few activities that have already been done or that are upcoming in the grade levels. But also, again, like I said, just the type of thinking routines that you can do at home to help your child still have some student-led inquiry, which is obviously the focus that we would have in the classroom. So the main thing that we're looking at, and the first thing that we develop as educators is our central idea. What is the main idea that we want our students to get from this unit? Preschool just started a symbiosis unit, and their central idea is animals, including humans, rely on and impact each other. So everything that they'll be doing around the unit will focus on that concept for the next number of weeks. So we start with teacher provocation questions. So we want to just kind of provoke them and provoke their thinking without giving them answers to specific questions. So, what animals do you see when you go outside? What do they seem to be doing? Why? How do we help them? How do they help us? Right? How are they similar or different from us? What is our role in keeping them safe? So some of the activities that have taken place to help students get into that learning is, an intro song, a symbiosis song, kind of explaining what it is to them, getting them to think about other animal relationships and how they've helped each other, and then using Seesaw as a way to record themselves telling what animals they saw and how they helped each other. So that's one example of how preschool is using one of our other online tools, Seesaw, to get the kids engaged. Mr. Sella, who is joining us tonight, he actually read aloud some Shel Silverstein poems and then had the kids think about which ones were their favorites, what relationships they noticed, and then had an opportunity to go back and edit a template or respond from a picture or record themselves as well. So you'll see they might listen to a song, they might listen to poems, and there's different ways for the students to respond with activities. So for junior kindergarten, they're right now finishing up a materials unit, and their central idea is that materials have different properties and uses. So some of their provocations were, that we just learned that what human bodies are made of, but what are other things made of? Can you find this in nature, or did it get made in a factory? How many different ways can you describe a material item? Right? So throughout the unit, they would have maybe kids bring in different things so that they could run tests, or they would set up a material wall or museum in their classrooms. So those are some things that you could think about doing at home, even though they're getting out of the materials unit, just to get them to keep thinking about that concept. So some of the things they've done are to use different materials to create letters, as you can see from the first image on the left. They can create their name, they can write the alphabet. Another one that they had students do was conducting an experiment to discover if a material would sink or float, and then maybe figure out what material they could use to create a boat that would float. Sorry if you hear my dog in the background. She's got an allergic reaction. She's like scratching. So if you're hearing a weird sound, that's what that is. I'm sorry. So after spring break, junior kindergarten is going to be getting into their habitats unit. And that central idea is how living things are dependent on the world around them. So you'll be seeing a lot of activities coming in with that type of concept. So thinking about the provocations that we would use in class, like, what do you think these animals eat or drink? How do they get their food and drink? Where do you think they eat their food? When it rains or it's snowing, can animals keep them dry? How, right? So thinking about all these different provocation questions. And this slideshow will be shared in the parent resource site at the end of this session, so you'll have access to all of this. So some of the things that they'll be doing, thinking about like some virtual field studies, explore.org has live cams that you can watch throughout the day. Obviously the Eagle Cam is the most popular one, but there are ones where they can see inside of tanks in the aquariums, or they can witness animals in Africa in their own habitats. Also, The Great Kapok Tree is a good book that I'm sure will be used throughout the process because it helps children consider the implications of the human impact on habitats. in kindergarten, they're on their waste management unit, right? So the central idea is all about how humans produce and dispose of waste in a variety of ways. So some of the provocations we would use in class that you could maybe use at home is, what happens to trash and where does it come from? How is plastic made and where does it go after it's in the garbage? What can we do to make less trash? Why should we make less trash? Is it a problem that humans produce a lot of waste? And then what waste do we create in our classroom? So you could just substitute in our home from classroom. So some of the activities and some things you can maybe do at home is they are thinking about what's recyclable and what's not recyclable. So they watched a video on Michael Recycle, and then on a piece of paper, they drew 5 items in their home that they noticed had the recycle symbol on it, and then 5 items that did not. So really talking about how we sort our waste as well. And then also just really thinking about ways that things can be good and harmful. And in this situation, Emelina wanted her students to think about ways that plastic is good and ways that plastic is harmful. So they watched a video and then might have a discussion about things that we reuse in our homes, and then take a picture and, take a picture and then save it to Seesaw again. So these are just like the current units, the upcoming unit in JK, some of the provocations that we would use with students in class. But the last slide that I want to share is really thinking about how we're making thinking visible and how we're speaking with students, well, your children, about what they're learning. So like I said, this slide will be shared, so I'm not going to go through each one, but just thinking about the language that we're using with the kids and that we are still helping them to develop a growth mindset, to challenge them without giving them the answers, right? To provide them with supports and time to pursue their own passions. So I would suggest maybe looking through this because it does have some really great examples of language that we can use with kids to get them more comfortable with their learning at home. So as we said, we do have parent resources. We have a site that has been shared with everyone. And when you click on it, it will take you to all of the resources shared with you tonight. And then also you have our contact list for those people who were presenting tonight and that you can reach out to for specific things.
Great. So that is a lot of information, and Tennille, you can end your screen share. That would be great. You can see the gallery of people again. Thank you. So this is your opportunity to ask questions. I am going to unmute everybody. So if you have other things going on in the background, just be cognizant of that, please. And or you can certainly immediately we hear everything. So just mute your own computer if you're not asking a question. Does anyone have a specific question? No.
Hi, Cynthia.
Hi.
I'm Derek's mom. I'm in kindergarten. And
Hi.
I'm really we are kind of in the situation because my husband really need to work from home, and I think the school give us a lot of tasks for him to do, but it's good things, but it's really hard for us. We have a baby at home, so we need to take care of baby and take care of the kids. Hard.
So I think the comment is just that it's been really hard to engage Derek and also to continue to work at home. Yeah, and I think that, so the intent was to provide you with some resources. When you look through these resources on your own, you can go on to that link that Peg shared. It's in the chat line as well. And these resources will all be there, and they should hopefully give you some ideas about how to engage Derek a little bit more. If you wanted to ask a specific question of a teacher specifically, we have quite a few teachers present tonight. We have all grades are represented, preschool JKK. So if you did want.
I just wondering, like, if we didn't finish, if the student didn't finish the task or the homework, like what happened, you know?
Nothing. So that's a great question. And you know, we've been talking a lot about how this is really stressful. Some parents are asking for more engaging activities. Some parents are asking for less. And so we are providing a scaled amount of activities, and you will do what you can do. And if your child, like Jessica was saying in the very beginning, your child is not into it that day, do not push it. And if they can only do one thing during the day, then you can choose the academic activity that they can do that day. If you are only ever doing one thing in a day, read with your child for 20 minutes. That is a wonderful thing to do. We are not going to hold it against your preschooler, JK, or kindergartner. We want to continue to encourage our kids to think critically and
as long
to
as we get the
engage,
941s, that's all I need, I guess.
engage in the activities that their teachers are providing for them. But if it is certainly not worth a power struggle. And what I would do is, as Mr. Pacheco was talking about, is offer some choices or set up a schedule. This is when I do my work. This is when you do your work.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
I'm going to jump in here too. And maybe Cindy, I think you can still
And then,
mute
for
individuals.
example, Bank of America
Anik
emailed
and
me
Zachary
today. They're
don't
like,
know that
we
they're.
need
I know it's
have this handy payroll
You
report
can
as of February
mute
15th.
all right now, Cindy?
Date after that date by employee. That's
I'm
then-
trying.
and when I spoke with Bank of America today.
There we go. So now when you want to speak, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, good. Yes, I can. Okay.
Good. Sorry
Good.
about
We
that,
got
everyone.
Figure it out. So one thing I also wanted to say, according to this, obviously we understand that you have a lot going on and it's hard to engage kids in the computer, especially young kids, and just in general, being at home, they're in their kind of comfort zone where they're used to relaxing. But one thing I really want to encourage is, like Ms. Riegling said, obviously the resources are being provided as kind of like help. You know, I know we're not going to hold them to some strict, grading schedule. We want to provide some materials for you to use when they're convenient for you, and when they're not, to not use that. But one thing I have been saying to a lot of parents is there's a lot of like natural learning that is happening right now. Kids learning how to organize their time, independently function, fine motor skills like Ms. Napvik talked about, and also just like awareness of like what's going on in the world, like how the community is coming together and what's happening. And there's a lot of important conversations to be happening with your kid. A lot of the kids have, kind of expressed a lot of stress about there's a lot of work. And our message, from what I understand, our whole staff has been, hey, do what you can do. We're not demanding it out of you. But that there's a lot of lessons that aren't in those lessons right now, and getting our kids to understand that even if I had a fourth grader, I was talking today, that even if you made a whole schedule, you made a checklist, you prioritized what was most important, and you didn't get it all done. And the kid was focused on the fact that she didn't get it all done. So I tried to redirect her to say, what you did get done was organizing yourself, prioritizing, making a schedule, independently functioning. That's more important than the division worksheet or division activity. I know we have worksheets, activity that was on Seesaw. So getting kids to understand, and also us understanding as adults that there is a sort of natural curriculum that happens when events, unprecedented events like this happen, and getting kids to understand that even if your work's not getting done, you're still learning a lot outside of the classroom. So that was just something I wanted to add on to that. I'm gonna go back on mute now.
Other questions? I saw there was a hand raised. Yeah, go ahead, Ritu.
Hey, hi guys.
Hi.
Thank you for doing this. So Dia's here, so I can ask in front of her even. Screen time. How do we manage screen time? Because we've got play dates on screen time, we've got class time on screen time, we got iPad. Is there any rules? I mean, I know it's unprecedented territory, but sometimes I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you want to watch Frozen 2 again? We're watching Frozen 2 again. Just curious on if there's any thoughts on that.
I can maybe jump in here a second. I want to step on your toes. I mean, I like you said, and hi Dia, first of all, hi Dia, miss you. See, it's hard. It's the struggle that we're all dealing with. I mean, even as an adult, it's a lot of screen time for me. I'm having meetings, on a screen that I am used to having in person. So I think it's definitely something to keep in mind. I've kind of tried to set an hours limit for myself that I can spend on a screen. I've also tried to encourage families and kids to do that. I think a lot of what we're trying to present today, Ms. Trumbull, is kind of other activities that you can do that are independent. Like Ms. Napick had a bunch of wonderful ideas with sorting and counting, and just trying to give a little choice in kind of sections that they can do it. I don't have the perfect answer for that at all, but I think maybe like a scavenger hunt, like I said, we would maybe reach out to one of us individually, and we can kind of try to come up, if you have like, I want more math activities off the screen, or we want more kind of social emotional leisure activities off the screen, so she's not watching Frozen 2 for the third time, even though I heard it's a really good flick. Just so we can brainstorm together. But I definitely hear that. I hear that for myself as an adult. So I'm really glad for you to say that, because I think it is something that we need to keep in mind. And I think we need to brainstorm together to come up with some activities that kids can do alone that is away from the screen. But my first thing is scavenger hunts. I mean, with rewards, like there's all kinds, even in your backyard, in your place, just little things like that take time, and hide things around the house for them to go find it, stuff like that. But yeah, I would love to have a one-on-one conversation and kind of brainstorm with you.
It looks like
around our house is hiding the puzzle pieces before she does the puzzle. She loves to look for the puzzle pieces first.
Ms. Holman, it looked like you had something to contribute too there.
Yeah, I just had another thought to add. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see your faces. Hi, Ritu. I think that question is always an important one for parents of any age child. And, we all have our own plans around what fits us at our household. And it varies from one house to the next. And there's a lot of information out there. So it's hard. It was hard for me when Casey was little to figure that out. And now he's 16. But I would say this is an unusual time, and we're all, really processing and working on and managing a lot of different things. It's a big difference from a few weeks ago or a month ago. And so I think at me as a parent and me as a teacher, I'm trying to allow myself space for that. So I think what feels right one day might be different the next day, and you might have an idea in your head, but then the day just changes a lot for you or for Dia or, for anyone. So I think you need to allow yourself and her space for that too. I think that's important for all of us.
And maybe even communicating kind of that with Dia or any of your kids, just, hey, this is something that's kind of unprecedented. So I'm learning along with you about what the best way to deal with this is. That's kind of like a partnership piece that I really try to use with a lot of kids, that I'm not trying to teach you something, that we're both learning how to cope with big emotions together. And here's how you can help me, and here's how I can help you, and let's be a team. But I think Erica speaks to a really good point. You kind of got to allow yourself to be a learner again, and know that your model isn't perfect right now. But I think a little communication with kids when there is, like things change day to day, that can be hard for kids. So I think talking to them about it can at least ease some of the anxiety around kind of not a steady schedule.
We want to be mindful of the time. We are at our ending point, but I'm happy to stay on. I know a lot of our teachers probably can stay on for another few minutes as well, but I did want to just thank those of you that need to leave. It is about 8:19, so thank you for joining us, but we are here to continue to answer questions should you have additional questions. Any other ones?
I have a question.
Hey, go ahead.
Okay. So this is Penelope's parents, Kimberly and Larry.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see everyone. Honestly, a lot of the things you've talked about tonight is pretty refreshing. I think we were pretty concerned of completing tasks. I think that's just in our nature. If you get something sent to you, you feel as though it needs to be done. So it's obviously nice to know that if she's not in that mode that particular day, that we don't necessarily have to do it. I think one of the things in the feedback she's given us a lot has been that she feels as though she's doing double the work, because we talk about it and then we record it. And it seems, and it was an interesting thing that she said to her grandparents, we noticed a couple days ago. She said that she's doing double her schoolwork.
Her word was duplicate.
Yeah,
She's
duplicate.
doing school in duplicate.
So I don't know if you've heard that from any other parents, or it was just an interesting thing.
I've actually heard that from every teacher too. So, because we're all, recording things and that sort of thing. So I know for myself, I recorded a read aloud the other day, and I was laughing to Peg that it was an 8.5-minute read aloud that took me an hour to record. And I didn't re-record myself. It just took that long. So I think that's a good point. So the idea would be to do a few quality pieces versus all of the pieces. So let her do a few, choose a few things that she wants to do and do them well. The explanation, of course, is that, it's really hard to make sure that your teachers are seeing and hearing your thinking from a distance, and that this is the only real way we know how to do that. Mm-hmm. But I would certainly minimize the number of assignments required and intersperse them with things that she really wants to do. Some of the activities that were just offered up are great ideas, and you can present her with a couple and let her choose. I always caution people about not giving too many choices, but giving 2 things to choose from, maybe 3, and they're all great choices that will engage her, and they're all be entertaining, but also educational for her.
That's really great, because I think that over the past week or 2, this has been extremely difficult for her, and she's been somewhat of a different child. And thank you for letting us know that. I think it'll help us to be able to navigate this better.
And I appreciate the question, and I also want to point out that there are many parents that are feeling that way, and then there are some parents who are feeling like it's just not enough for them. They need more. And so we're trying to find that right balance too. So if we're giving you too much, just do what works for you. This gets a little more challenging as kids get a little older, but we're even saying that to our older students at this point.
And maybe one thing I would like to suggest too, on that, is maybe a quick one-on-one with the teacher, kind of giving the same message can kind of help that sink in with the student. Just my teacher is saying that too, so I know that I can kind of pick a couple assignments instead of I need to do them all.
And that could really be helpful at this point. So thank you for that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would just add that, I don't want parents to feel this pressure to have this beautiful final video that's like exactly the answer we're looking for. Like, we're all humans. I mean, if you could be a fly on the wall in some of our staff Zoom meetings, the things that don't go as perfectly, but really, I mean, even maybe instead of focusing on that product, that final thing you're recording, like the conversation you're having with her is just as valuable. So even letting us know, just what are you guys talking about as a family after you read a book or after you do an activity, that is so much more valuable and less stress for you than having this like rehearsed answer for her to say to the camera. Do you know what I mean? So,
and I would also add that if they don't do the exact activity on Seesaw, but you're doing something else like reading a book together, I'm sure your teacher would love a picture of that as well.
Absolutely. Scott, you have your hand raised?
Oh, no, I was just
Scott Conway. Sorry. Scott Conway, you have your hand raised. I don't see you, but
over here.
I have you
a
are.
question regarding the progression of the upcoming years. So are children going to be going to the next grade level after all of this, or are we going to be expecting summer school? What's the plan?
So it's a great question. Our plan is to move kids along unless we have some seriously grave concerns about that, which you would already have heard about before this remote learning opportunity here. So no, we are going to matriculate to the next grade, and we will, we're all in the same boat. The entire country is in the same boat. We can't keep the entire country from moving ahead. So we will be addressing any gaps as we see them, but our plan is to move forward.
Okay, and is summer
My
school
question.
been at all?
We have not decided what's happening for summer. At this point, our plan is still to have summer. I see Miss Feely is on the line here. You want to jump in, Kim, and say something about that? Our plan is to have a summer school. We are not, at this point, summer school has been more of a camp, not a summer school, but it's possible that we could offer that if we felt it was necessary or if that was feedback from parents that they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a lot of faculty interested in running the summer camp, so it will be all lead teachers will be GEMS faculty. So, that is something, but yeah, I am moving forward with all the plans for June 15th through July 24th to run the summer camp. Hopefully outdoors, hopefully, field studies, along with, the academics as well.
But those are good questions to still be considered. I'm sorry, Terry, did you have something you wanted to ask?
I did. Thank you for letting me chime in, and thank you for providing this platform. So my question is really related to the last question. Is there a benchmark that we can use as parents just to know and assess where our kids are going, and so that the end of, if this is 30 days or 45 days or 60 days, and we can assess, okay, well, Evan has been doing, addition and subtraction, and he should be moving into this by May. So what was the benchmark of the teacher so that we as parents can make sure that we're staying on track at home?
Great question. So we have a standards-based report card. We will be looking at those standards with parents, both in conferences that are coming up in May, and if we do them virtually, we'll do them virtually, but we will do them. And then there'll be a report card that comes out in June. So we are continuing to use the same standards that we've always used, and we have many, many different ways of assessing whether our kids are meeting those standards through some work that they present, through conversations they may have, through samples that you share. It isn't something that I would say a parent can necessarily assess at the end of the year, but we can share those standards. They are part of the report card, and there are many, and they're in various areas, and they're not all academic. Many of them are around the learner profile attributes, as well as our approaches to learning that we focus on, how kids are managing themselves, how they're communicating, how they're socializing. And so some of those things will be a little more challenging, obviously, but we also have the first part of the year to base that on. I will say that, the IB has made a determination that the diplomas for the kids in the diploma program, those assessments will not be able to happen in the same way, and they've given schools the leeway to use a percentage of the assessments and grades that they've accumulated over the course of the year to determine their grade and whether or not they will receive their diploma. The IB is not going to hold those seniors that are graduating. We don't have any, fortunately, but they're all over the world. And, they're not going to hold those kids back from graduating because they don't have the final assessments. What they are doing is looking at how to, use the assessments that have been accumulated throughout the year, and we'll do the same thing, but we assess in many ways more qualitatively, and we have formative assessments and summative assessments, which are, ongoing and sort of the end product of a unit. But we will be looking at all those things and telling you where your child is realistically. So it's not as clear of an answer as I want it to be, but this is not.
No, that's great.
Yeah, this is not a situation we've ever encountered before.
Of course.
But we will learn every week, and we will take guidance from those who are doing it with us, and from the IBO, and from other independent schools that we are communicating with. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I see in the chat that some people shared some ideas, which is wonderful. Peg, you want to sign us off with that final slide with the link, so you can take a screenshot of that, or you can write it down. But before I leave you, I just want to thank everyone again for coming out tonight, being a part of this tonight, and for your confidence in us and partnership with us. This is definitely a learning experience for every single one of us. We are all in it together, and we hopefully will continue to get your feedback each week and get better at this as we move along. So thank you so much. Please stay healthy.
Hey team, Peg here. It's great to see so many of you on tonight. I'm so excited to see you. This is our link, but I would just like to show you when you click this bit.ly, I put it in a chat window a couple times. You should see it's one of the last ones. You can feel free to screenshot this. This is a shortened link that leads us to our GEM site, and you will have seen this through, and I'll just hold this here a second for anyone still taking those screenshots. Cindy has been sending out this website in her notes to families, but when you click this link, you'll notice that this is where all of our slides are from this evening. You can see that Mr. P has linked his super helpful coping strategies here, and you can download them or adjust them on your own. And we have slides from everybody. And everything is available here. Please reach out to us if there's any way we can support you. We really do take your feedback seriously. So thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We missed you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.